We're here at the APEC Summit with Pukar Hamal, who's the founder and CEO of SecurityPal. First of all, welcome. Nice to see you.
Good to see you again, Diane.
Let's remind people, what do you do?
I'm the founder and CEO of SecurityPal. SecurityPal works with...
That means you're all powerful and...
Well, we're all powerful, but really we're trying to help our customers be powerful as it relates to the last mile of the commercial transaction.
Trust.
It's all about trust. It's all about, well, actually, I would say it's maybe even about the opposite of trust, right? We don't trust each other. Trust is at a low point in many ways, across the board, you know?
Is this identity theft? Give me give me a sense, first of all, of where was the opportunity you saw in the space and what differentiates you from your competitors?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing that I noticed in 2018 when GDPR came out was I was operating an HR tech
GDPR, to remind people, is the privacy notifications
that's
in
right.
Europe
General data
that
protection.
made all the tech companies apoplectic, thinking, "Oh my God, we'll never be able to innovate again."
That's exactly correct.
And California has its own version.
California has its own version, and guess what? Every nation state, and thanks to federalism here, every state's going to have its own set of rules.
Which is, people kind of like privacy. So that was, you saw an opportunity there.
Well, I saw a problem there, which turned into an opportunity when I realized that, hey, how am I going to get through all this mess? Because I got to close deals, I got to win customers, and customers want to know what's happening with their data. And so that was the point at which I realized, wow, there's an enormous opportunity here to build a company where there's two companies that want to work together. It makes sense for them to work together, but they can't, because in terms of their security, compliance, privacy, all of the checks that they need to have, you know, they don't know how to actually get it. Startups don't know how to get it, and big companies don't know what to ask for.
So, I don't mean to kind of be trite about, but is it partly like these companies where you have a workforce that's spread across the world and you say, okay, I will manage the regulatory friction for you and make it a seamless process so that you can just do your business? Are you doing the equivalent of that for security?
I would say, yeah. I mean, at the last mile of a deal, right? We have incredible customers like Figma, Airtable. We have one of the top 3 credit card companies.
They're all here. I'm kidding.
One of the top 3 credit card companies. We have a top 5 global asset management firm in the world, trillions of assets under management. We probably have, you know, one of our customers is maybe the AI company in the world, right?
So if I'm somebody who's not an enterprise customer, and I'm sitting there, like, what is it that, let's take that to the consumer.
Yeah.
Why should they care about what you do?
The reason why consumers should care about this is because consumers also use businesses to house their data, right?
So it's a verification.
You're storing your data with a social media company. You're storing your data with a credit card company. Well, guess what? Those companies have other companies that they work with.
What are you verifying? There's the regulatory compliance.
Sure.
I get that. So it's like, you know what? We're good to go in Germany and we're good to go in California. And
well, good to go is also challenging, right? Because those regulations are constantly changing. The data that flows through your systems is constantly changing.
What other elements of trust are incorporated into your tools?
I would say the main thing that we help with is, and it's the category that we're trying to create is customer assurance. So it's this continuous assurance throughout the life cycle of two companies working with each other. And assurance means you want to know, okay, is this company going to be in business? What sort of data?
Do you test their financial health?
Well, sometimes we do. Sometimes we ask for their financial reports. What about what sort of encryption to use? Where do you store your data? Are you using one of these cloud providers, or are you storing them somewhere, right? Okay, do you do data localization? Is my data, if I'm a European company, is my data sitting in the US?
Here's a question. So you get insight into all the practices that all these companies, where do most of them fall short? Are they using like dubious storage? I mean, where do you think you look at people and go, well, that's dumb?
I would say, I don't want to say they fall short, because I think executives, security leaders, technology leaders are kind of overwhelmed a little bit, because there's a proliferation, there's a Cambrian explosion of technologies out there, and more technologies want access to more data.
Right.
And so what are you going to do? If your employee says, hey, I need to use this tool, otherwise I can't do my job, you don't want to be, the naysayer.
When you're talking about because you get insight now into a lot of data. You're seeing, what are some of the things you're gleaning from the data that you would put on our radars, either in terms of how the regulatory environment's changing, or how the use of technology is changing?
I'll give you a perfect example, right? There's a lot of companies right now that want to know how you're using large language models. What large language models are you using as it relates to artificial intelligence?
GPT?
Exactly.
Is it disrupting you, et cetera?
Right? Are you using ChatGPT? What data is flowing through OpenAI? What data is flowing through all of these models? What's happening to my data? Can I have ultimate control over it?
Do you check with that?
Yeah, those are some of the things that we try to verify when a company is trying to do business with another company. You want to verify those stuff. And verification of that, it means clicking around a bunch of software, taking a bunch of screenshots, verifying controls. It's a mess. And how do you build a system that actually brings it all together?
So from an intelligence gathering point of view, you're in a very interesting perch. Like, for example, using ChatGPT can sometimes seem like a Faustian pact to me, which is you're kind of training the model to do what you do and potentially disrupt you, right? Like, let's say you're a company that helps people write better prose. You use a third-party model, you're in essence kind of disrupting the core of your business. Do you see that? Like, how many people are using third-party? Most of them must be, because it's hard to build this stuff. Do you see any risk factors there? I mean, I know it's just, obviously these are your customers.
Well,
precious.
I think that the thing is, I think the risk in many ways unknown right now because it's such a new piece of technology. But I would say the vast majority of people that are building with AI are inherently using some third party.
So when they say they have an AI solution, it's not a built-in house solution.
Yeah.
It's like, we too have used ChatGPT or the equivalent from Google, et cetera.
They could have built components of it in-house, but certainly, as it relates to generative AI and the advances in large language models, they're using, be it an OpenAI sort of large language model, like a GPT large language model, or one of the open source ones that exist out there, right? One by Meta or Falcon or some of the other large language models that exist.
What are the biggest pain points right now? Because you can verify that somebody's done something. You don't necessarily verify how hard it was to get there, right? But are there particular either parts of the world or developments in the industry that you would say are causing pain to companies just to clear those hurdles to meet your bar?
I would say the biggest challenge that most companies have is how can I actually assure my customer that my current security posture, compliance posture is good and I'm working towards a better one, right?
But getting to that implies getting to that security posture is easy, which isn't. Like,
it isn't,
the GDPR or whatever, I can't remember if I got all the acronym, but that was like, that induced a headache for a reason, which was like, I have to now ask people, do you accept cookies, as opposed to like ask them to opt out. Like, that's a fundamental change. So what are you seeing on that level? Is there any pain points that you see? Because every policymaker comes in with their version of, I'm here to protect my people.
So one, I think it's staying on top of the regulations. That's what we're hearing from our customers. Hey, what is it that I'm not doing that I ought to be doing? And who's telling me that I ought to do that?
Is the US the least restrictive in the world, or most, or does it depend?
No, I mean, there's a lot of countries that don't have like the fundamental like rule of law systems that even, so
there's that. That's true, there's that, yeah.
So I would say from a robust economy that has plenty of opportunity, I would say we're a bit, less restricted than maybe countries in Europe or other places. I think by and large, I think that's good because I fundamentally believe anybody in a garage should be able to start a company.
Yeah, innovation's messy. Yeah. And is there anything else that you glean from the data right now? We're at an event where it's this intersection of policymakers, private sector, a lot of discussion about AI. What do we do about it? How do we protect people? What are you seeing? Because that's all about trust. And we're so new, so early in this cycle, we don't even know what to regulate. We don't even know what it can do yet.
Well, I think we gotta have smart conversations with not just the biggest companies, because sometimes what ends up happening, government only listens to the biggest companies because those are the people that have access to government officials. You gotta listen to small businesses. You gotta listen to startups. So who are the folks that actually are giving the little guys a voice, right? I run a $100 million company. That might seem like a big deal.
That's chump change in this part of the world.
There's folks here running $100 billion companies and plus.
Well, that must give you pause about some of the AI regulations when you have the biggest players going, we must regulate this. You go, hold on a second, because smaller companies sometimes think that in essence that locks in the status quo for the titans.
That's exactly right.
Are you feeling that?
I think, I don't think companies should rely on the US government as their bouncer. Right?
Oh, the ones to kick you out of the bar?
Right, yeah. So I want to make sure that, then that's actually one of our, when I realized what was going on with GDPR and all these different regulations, I was like, hold on a second. Like, all the strategies that the previous era of companies used to grow are effectively like, can't tap into that.
We're talking about trust. Do you trust Washington to regulate this? It's an easy question. Where's your answer? I'm just kidding.
I think there are incredibly smart folks up and down the political spectrum that actually can see through this, right? We understand how Washington works in some ways.
I'm trying to glean that. So yes, I know maybe. Not necessarily, right? Not necessarily trust Washington. So you had a VIP badge. It's not visible now. Did you get to leverage that to give a message to policymakers here?
Well, I certainly had a chance to meet some incredible CEOs of big banks, chemical companies, and other, material goods company. I mean, it is incredible to talk to CEOs because I think CEOs are some of the best people that you could talk to influence policy.
What about policymakers? Because we had the mayor, we've got Gavin Newsom, we've got Joe Biden, his entire commerce secretary.
Yeah.
How much access do the business leaders have to them here?
I think it's a cozy VIP lounge, and there's a lot of folks that have a lot of asks. I think it was good to mainly hear from them.
Right.
And for me, as a smaller company, as a smaller player in that room, I would say it's more about my opportunity.
To sneak in.
I don't want to say I snuck in.
No, I get your point. Yeah. No, but I think it's powerful. People talk about small and medium-sized businesses in the abstract, almost like we talk about the people. If you're in these situations, if they don't actually get a voice, it becomes rhetoric as opposed to reality, right?
Yeah, exactly. And listen, smaller companies sort of need to band together and work together. But what is interesting, actually, I look at a lot of the dynamics, discussions around bilateralism versus multilateralism, because there's a bunch of small countries that have to band together and get a voice, right? So I would say there's a lot of parallels there, right? Like, it makes sense for the U.S. to have bilateral relations with, India or China or Japan, some of these bigger economies. And what do you do if you're a really small country, right? You sort of have to band together, right? And in the same way, I think, a lot of startups, up and coming startups, we sort of have to get on the same page. Right? I think we're too often busy competing with each other when really there's bigger competitors out there.
I was speaking to the CEO of Autodesk, and he was talking about this fracturing risk of the internets, multiple ecosystems. Do you see that being a problem?
We're on our way to that. If you think about it, most commerce in the world didn't happen through the internet 30 years ago.
But here we are, 2023.
Most of commerce at some point touches the internet.
Because there is this. If China has its own ecosystem, U.S. has its own ecosystem, that then makes trust a different commodity. It depends, which ecosystem you're in.
It depends on which ecosystem you're in, and what it does is also actually increases customer acquisition costs, right? So that directly goes into how much investments you might want to allocate to startups. So if CAC suddenly goes through the roof, then you probably need more investment capital.
Yeah.
So we're seeing these very challenging trends where there's a rising interest rate environment, capital is actually pulled back, but at perhaps the exact time when startups need more capital because customer acquisition costs have suddenly increased.
Well, Asia is a source of capital for a lot of people. Middle East is a source of capital. For your health of your own business, let's get back to you and what you're doing. Where do you grow from here? What are the biggest opportunities for you?
The biggest opportunities for us are right now in the upper mid-market enterprise, right? It's these larger companies that are working with a lot of vendors, a lot of other companies, right? How do we help them onboard vendors the right way, make sure that they're trustworthy? On the folks that are actually
kind of white labeled as part of the
right, helping them.
They pretend that your technology is their technology. I'm kidding.
I mean, they as long as they pass appropriately, that's fine. In terms of helping smaller companies, it's really about helping them understand, okay, if you're trying to go after the financial services market, if you're trying to go after the healthcare market, here are the 100,000 controls you need. We can actually help you set those up and automate that such that you can now attack that entire market. And it's a one-time cost in terms of setting it all up. Obviously, there's the ongoing cost of monitoring it, but at least you now have unlocked this massive market. The other thing that ends up happening though with increased CAC is customer acquisition costs, is the customer acquisition cost gets increased for everybody. So if you can get to the other side, you also have greater lifetime value, so long as your product actually ends up generating a lot of value. Right.
If I could buy you, I would, but I'm definitely not your target market. But I trust you on this.
Right.
Back to trust. Anything else you'd want to say with regard to where the conversation should be going? Let's just even say we're in San Francisco. The city's looking pretty good, right? Are you, well, okay.
I live like 2 blocks down.
Okay, excellent. Here we are. You're Joe Q Public, you're in San Francisco, which frankly, a lot of the coverage is San Francisco, what a mess. We don't see it like, I'm from New York, so.
Yeah,
you know.
I grew up in New York, by the way.
Okay,
so.
Congratulations. Talk about like San Francisco as an ecosystem, because should we be worried? Is it overplayed, underplayed? Like, it's hard to tell in an event where the streets have been cleaned and there's,
Yeah, anytime I see people just sort of poo-pooing San Francisco, no pun intended, on Twitter.
You're saying that because there could literally be that on the streets, but go ahead. Yeah.
I'm always like, man, it must be a slow news week. I think, listen, I think.
No, it's a quality of life issue, and this is an important, iconic city. I think it's a fair game.
It is an iconic city. I think the gold rush is back in San Francisco. The gold rush is AI, and I think this is. Again, the Renaissance.
That'll bring Walgreens and CVS back to the city. That's the holy grail moment.
Walgreens, CVS, Target, I don't know about that. Maybe I should talk to their executives here, but.
That TBD. Well, listen, thank you for joining us. I don't know if there's anything else you'd want to mention just to put on our radar.
No, I think this is incredible. I think one of the things that's really interesting about APEC with 60% of GDP and the internet is, I don't think it's not just going to be the countries that are part of APEC, actually official member economies. For example, India is not an official member economy.
The Pacific Ocean does not lap its shores. It's such a quirky organization that way. If you're one of those 21 economies that happens to be able to touch the Pacific Ocean, you're in. Right. Otherwise, it's like, we'll see you at the UN.
It's got to be a little bit of a stretch. But I think what's important is there's a bigger ocean that everyone's going to have access to, and that's the internet.
The Atlantic? Okay, sorry, you're right.
The internet's the bigger ocean, right? And so I actually think even countries that are close enough in proximity to APEC actually end up benefiting from, because you're going to have the trade, but you're actually going to access those markets through the internet, right? And so that's actually, I think, the unique opportunity. So a lot of people might be wondering, well, why do we care about APEC at all? But if you look at this as a platform that's actually elevating a lot of these economies.
Yeah, globalization's not dead, it's being redefined, basically.
It is, it is definitely being redefined in the age of the internet.
Wise words. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Diane.
Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah.